Thank you for joining me again, everyone. Today I have the usual experience of someone's close brush with death and their adventure from then on in. This one is from, it looks like a lady called Michaele or Michaelia. I'm not too good on name pronunciation, but I think that's right. One of those two anyway. So let's have a listen to her experience. I was driving my 9-year-old daughter home from the dentist, and she was sleeping on the seat beside me. We came to a level crossing, and I did not see the train emerging from a bank of trees. We hit the second carriage, narrowly missing being hit by the train. I remember how things slowly happened when I realized I could not stop in time. I put my arm in front of my daughter's body to brace her, and remember thinking with humor how futile and divinely human that gesture was in the face of what was about to happen. Then we hit. I was looking at the train at the moment of impact and literally bit the steering wheel 3 times. Although I don't have any memory of it, I did embed my teeth into it. Some of my teeth jammed into my jaw in all the wrong places. I only experienced that kind of blackout when bumping my head hard on a cupboard door. I immediately tried to get my daughter off the floor where she had been thrown out, but barely conscious, my hand would not work. I looked at it and felt no pain, but remember thinking, "Oh, that's going to hurt." Then she woke up, crawled up onto the seat and was crying. Every time I reached to comfort her, she screamed and turned away, saying, "It is a dream, Mummy," crying. I told her it was real, but we would be okay. I finally looked at myself in the rearview mirror and understood her horror. I looked like a ghoul. I leaned my head on the steering wheel and thought to myself, I don't want to deal with this. And whoosh, suddenly I was above and outside of the car, standing next to a being of light. Even though the train was still hurtling by, there was no sound. This being of light had the suggestion of a body and a face, but nothing definitive. It says, still, this being felt masculine for some reason. It was beautiful. We did not speak in sentences or with voices. Whole thoughts were conveyed with complete understanding. I was told that it was my choice to live or go on to the next thing. Next thing are my words. In the thought exchange, it was an image that is impossible to describe. Then I was shown the essence of my life up to that point. Not in little scenes rolling by, it was my life in a distilled version. There was no judgment surrounding it. It was just my life. There was no judgment regarding the choice I would make one way or the other. The experience was so very enticing. I could feel myself yearning for more. Then I remember looking down at my car, through the windshield at my daughter sobbing on the seat, as far away from my body as she could get. In retrospect, the next part of the experience felt very weird, but that only occurred to me later when I thought about it with all my judgment securely back in place. Looking at her then, all I saw was a lifetime already in place with this other soul. At that moment, she was not my daughter. There was nothing maternal in the choice I made, And again, there was no judgment, not even from me. I decided to live this life, and at once the light being was taking me somewhere. We were moving through a vastness. I have no other words for it. And at this point, the language I use to describe it is not enough. The vastness was not empty, and yet it was. We arrived at what the being said was love. This love, it is always here, always streaming towards you, never diminishing, always loving you. All you have to do is be open to it, receive it. This will heal you. In that moment, I thought it meant my body healing. It did mean that, but it also about so much more. And I learned this in the years following my experience. I've never found a way to truly describe what I saw there and resort to the only explanation I can give for something that defies our limited language. Love was boundless, yet contained no colour and all colour, no thing and all things. It was tangible, dense, mysterious, and light. It was everything and nothing. It was an actual presence, but not a personality. It was all shape and no shape. I felt so joyous in the most precious, in the most peaceful. It felt so joyous in the most peaceful, quiet way, very grounded and accepting. Then suddenly I was back in my body, lifting my head off the steering wheel, turning my face away from my terrified daughter, who, by the way, only needed a total of 11 stitches for her wounds. I started focusing on my breathing. I could see my breath moving through my body, and then was told not to swallow any more blood, but to spit it out, which I did. I tried to open my door, but couldn't, and then tried to climb into the back seat in order to get us out of the chair, which was still dangerously close to the moving train. I found I could not move my legs. It later turned out that my hip was broken. Finally, the train stopped moving, and after some time the conductor, or a man from the train, came racing out to the car and asked me if I was okay. Inside, I was laughing at the question and do not remember my answer. He said he was going to run down the road to a house on the hill, about 1 mile away, and use their phone to call an ambulance. He left. I could feel myself starting to lose body warmth, and an odd sort of distant pain began to come over me. Suddenly, a car pulled up, and this giant woman wearing a long wool coat emerged. She peered at my daughter, then came around to the driver's side and asked me, "What can I do to help you?" I asked her to take care of my baby. She walked around the car, removing her enormous coat, opened the door and scooped up my daughter. She wrapped her in the coat, then slid into the passenger seat, held my daughter facing away from me, and crooned, "It'll be all right, baby," over and over again, kissing the top of my daughter's head, rocking her gently, and my daughter stopped crying. I went back to breathing and spitting blood. I didn't know who that giant woman was or where she came from. Nobody seemed to know about her, although she was there when the police and ambulance arrived. When the emergency medical team took my daughter, the woman left. When the EMTs got us into the small town hospital, a doctor called my mother, who lived in a different state, and told her I was going to die, and there was nothing he could do. The EMTs packed me back into the ambulance and made a 1-hour trip in 30 minutes to a larger hospital where they were able to treat me. For the record, through all of it, I knew with certainty that I would not die. Aside from a continued heightened awareness and consciousness that lasted for several days, that is the story of my near-death experience. I would like to add that I ended up terribly depressed after returning to my life and finding it just the same as before. I think I was so changed by the experience, yet none of the circumstances of my life had changed. I still had to deal with what I had created for myself prior to the accident. I was after all just another soul living the earth experience and evolving, but rather slowly. It took me forever to figure out why I felt so depressed. I think, unconsciously, I expected my amazing experience to magically transform the actual circumstances of my life, not just me. 36 years later, I think it has. Love flows, and all we have to do is receive. The intensity of that experience has never dimmed. That's the end of that experience. So let's go through it again and have a look at what Michaele has written here. So this one happens because of a car crashing into the train. I think I lose memory, but I lose track of all these experiences I read because I read so many of them. But it kind of rings a bell that there was another experience I read recently where someone died or came close to death through a similar accident. But yeah, I can't recall. But yeah, I've never read this experience before, so I quite enjoyed it. So here she is. She's cruising along, and she's with her 9-year-old daughter, and approaches a level crossing. And this sounds like a very poorly designed level crossing. If there's trees hiding the train approaching where the car actually crosses over the tracks. Sounds like something needs to be done there, but this is the reason Michaele gives for the accident occurring. She says she doesn't see the train at all. It's hidden by some trees. Maybe there was some lack of attention on her part as well, but that's not really mentioned. So we'll give Michaele the benefit of the doubt. And so yeah, it's poorly designed level crossing. So here she is cruising along, and she says she sees this train the last minute and actually avoids hitting the front of it, the engine part of it, but actually crashes into the second carriage. And like a lot of these experiences I read, there is this slowdown in time as the accident is unveiling itself. It's like everything goes into slow motion. She can remember putting her arm in front of her daughter's body, it's like this natural human reaction to some, protective mechanism. That's a natural thing to do for a person when something like this is about to happen. And she clearly remembers this moment and considers it she reflects on it with humor, because I don't know if she reflects on it or in the moment she was actually thinking this is kind of pointless. What good is my arm going to do over my daughter? How is that actually going to help her? But she does this anyway, and just thinks it's quite funny. She thinks how futile this attempt is to save my daughter, and as she does this, the train actually hits from there, she says she remembers the moment of impact, and quite literally, she says she bit down on the steering wheel. So she must have had her head open, her mouth open as the impact occurred, and this whiplash has caused her skull to move forward at quite a rate, and she says it's gone straight over the steering wheel. And the first thing she feels is these teeth in the back of her jaw being manipulated by this impact, and causing her some discomfort. But that's the only bit of pain she really feels, because after this bump of the head, so she says that the only time that she has bumped her head before was when she's hit her head on a cupboard door. Okay, so she's sort of comparing what's happening at this in this accident to any other severe head knock she's had. And she says the worst she's ever had is a bump on the head with the cupboard door. So obviously this is a lot more severe, a lot more intense, a lot more painful, and obviously going to have a lot more serious repercussions. So from there, she notices that her daughter is on the floor, but because of her state of consciousness, which is barely there, she's unable to coordinate her arms or her legs, so she can't reach down to help her daughter up. And then she looks at her hand and feels no pain, but remembers thinking that this is going to hurt. So there's a lot of things going on here. She's had this accident. It's literally moments after impact. It's a little bit confusing how it's been written, but yeah, you get the gist of it. She's panicking. Her daughter's on the ground. Her body's not moving properly. She's kind of making really initial assessments on what the state of the situation is, and it's quite confronting and quite scary. And she's obviously got a daughter there, which makes the situation even more intense. So it all kind of comes to a stop, and the body stopped moving around in the car, and the daughter starts crying. The mother starts to try to comfort her, but she just screams louder, and then she screams out, "Is this a dream, Mum?" And the mother replies, "No, it's not. It's real. We really just had this crash, and everything's going to be okay." And then she looks at herself in the mirror and sees that she is, to use her words, looking like a ghoul. So I don't know, what does a ghoul look like? Is that very pale and ghost-like, or does it mean that there's blood everywhere? Or I don't know. I'm gathering it means something pretty scary, something shocking enough to scare yourself a little bit. And obviously, the little kid must be in an intense state of terror because they've obviously just had a crash. And I've never. I have actually been in a car crash, but I was luckily not injured, so I couldn't imagine what that would be like to hit a train and then have all these injuries, and just the shock and fear that you would have after a situation like that would be pretty intense. So Michaele's way of dealing with this, and she says all she does is she just leans her head on the steering wheel and thinks, "Look, I can't deal with this. I don't want to be here anymore." And then it's like her wish is granted, because suddenly it's just like whoosh, and she's rising up outside of the car, and she says, she uses the word standing in inverted commas next to, and again in inverted commas, a being of light. She has a look around and she sees the train still hasn't stopped. It's whooshing past, but she can't hear anything. So she can still see the train, she can still see this otherworldly figure, this being of light as she calls it. And she takes a better look at this being, and she sees that it has a body and a face, but it's really hard to actually define exactly what it looked like. She doesn't describe any clothes or facial features or body type or anything like that, just that there is some sort of being there without any defined form. However, she does say this being emanated some sort of masculine qualities. She doesn't say exactly how that works, just she got the impression that it was a male being. She thinks it's absolutely beautiful, and I say this every week, but here we go again. This communication that they have. It's I like reading this every week because it kind of, for me, offers me more proof that this is what's actually happened to people, and this is what life is like on this other dimension. There is communication, there is other beings, there is other experiences to be had. But yeah, one of the best parts of it for me is this ability to communicate with other people, because it says that it's not only in this physical realm that we connect with people, we make friends, we have families, we live and share lives together. It seems that over on this other side that continues, but obviously in a whole different realm that is difficult to convey, and one of the main features that you come across in these experiences is this telepathic type of communication with other beings. So for me, that makes me happy, because it kind of points to this theory that we are this individual soul, and all other living things have an individual soul, and that individual nature of our souls is carried into this next dimension, and communication continues, just not the way we communicate. So she says, the way she describes it, they all describe it pretty much the same way, like I just said, telepathically, but they all use slightly different words to express how this actually went down. And her words used are, so she says, whole thoughts were conveyed with complete understanding. She says, I was told, in inverted commas, that it was my choice to live or go on to the next thing. And this sentence is interesting too, because this next thing are the words that she is actually using to get the point across to what she's trying to say here to us. But in reality, when this communication is actually going on, when this being says to her, you can either go back to your human body or you can go on to the next dimension, this next dimension it's not used as the words next dimension, or you can go to the next place or the next thing. It's actually an image that she's given. This next dimension, this heaven-like realm, this place beyond the veil, this dimension where we all come from and we all go back to, she's given an image, because obviously our human words aren't enough to properly describe it, and an image is a much better way of getting across what this place is actually like. So she says this image that she is given is impossible to describe. The next part of this experience is her life review. And most weeks I will read an experience where there is a life review too. So Michaele has been shown, she says her review is not little scenes rolling by. It's not like a clip here and a clip there and, oh, you did good in this bit and you could have improved there. For her, in her life review, and everyone has a unique review, although they have similar themes, she says her life is shown to her in a distilled version. They're her words, distilled version. So I don't know what exactly that means, to be perfectly frank. Does that mean that it's just shown from start to finish? There's no particular areas that are highlighted. It's just from go to woe. Or is that even the right words to say? From start to finish. She says her review, as a lot of people suggest, there's no judgment. It was just her life. There's no one saying, oh, okay, you could have done better here. You should have made that decision instead. It's just her watching herself, and she's just looking at this review. Or she doesn't say in amazement, but I'll throw that in there. I'd say I would be amazed, but actually, it seems totally detached of emotion altogether. It's not even watching a movie of someone else, it's her as a soul watching her human experience. And I guess the soul just doesn't see things as good or bad as we do. They just see, well, actually this next sentence, she says she sees this experience we have as very enticing, and she feels her soul yearning for more. I come across this, not like, I think like this myself sometimes, but I've got to admit, you got to be having a good moment, a good hour, and I don't know, is there such a thing as a good day? Is a day ever good or enjoyable or pleasurable the whole way through? I guess every now and then you get lucky, but for me it's more moments or an hour or two here or there. And when I am in those states, I can relate to what Michaele is saying here, that the human experience is very enticing. It doesn't have to be anything incredibly amazing like getting a job promotion or getting married, and obviously those moments are special. But for me, it's just these little things in life that, like finishing a hard shift at work, or going for a run and getting that out of the way for the day, and you get that little natural, I don't know, high, that just that pleasure in life. It doesn't even have to be adrenaline related. It can just be, looking forward to going to a movie or whatever, going out for dinner or seeing some friends, whatever it is. When you're in that state, you are, you're very settled. You're enjoying the experience, and you do, because I've read so many of these experiences, when I am in that state, I'm thinking, okay, so I can see why my soul would choose to come here and be in this body for little moments like this, and it does leave you wanting more, and it does make me want to look after myself and eat the right things, exercise, and extend this experience as a human as long as I can. But obviously you get the other side of that too, where life is hard and challenging and slow and painful. And yeah, it's kind of the opposite. I personally just can, yearn for it to be over a little bit more quicker when I'm in states like that. So for me, this is what life is like. I experience it as a constant roller coaster of these ups and downs, and I think everyone's the same. So then she jumps back and she's had this life review, and then the next thing she does is has a peek back at this physical realm and sees what's going on with her daughter. And she sees her daughter through the windshield sobbing on the seat, and she's trying to push her little body as far away from a mother as possible. And I guess that's because she looks, the mum is pretty badly injured and in a lot of pain, and obviously unconscious. She's not, her soul is not in her body. And Michaele is able to have a look at this scene from above the car and through the windshield. So I'm just reading this next sentence again. So as she's looking at her daughter, she sees her through a totally different perspective that she would as her mother. She sees that she has arranged, this is how I'm interpreting what she's written here anyway. She says, all I saw was a lifetime already in place with this other soul. So for me, that means this experience has been kind of arranged or predetermined or chosen from another level. And she's looking at her daughter and she's sort of thinking, I'm supposed to be spending my physical form with this person. And she doesn't even really see her as her daughter, she says. It's like this, it's almost like a human shell, and she's analysing this situation from her soul's point of view, and she sees this little human as another soul rather than her own flesh and blood. And she's just looking at this person without her maternal instincts. It's just another soul there. There's no judgment there. There's no connection there like there would be for a mother-daughter. And as she's looking at this, she's, I guess, kind of reminded that this is what she's chosen to do before she came here. She's chosen to be with this other soul in this realm, to have the experiences that they do. And as soon as this epiphany happens for her, she decides, okay, look, I'm seen enough. I think I want to go and live my life with this little girl and raise her and be a mother for her. So at that point, she doesn't go back to her body though. She realizes that she doesn't want to stay in this realm that she's in. She wants to go back to a human body. But before she goes, this light being takes her on a bit of an adventure. So for her, she says that they begin to move through a vastness. And this is the only word she has to describe this other realm, is vastness, at this point anyway in the experience. Because language just isn't enough. Again and again, we hear that human language is insufficient in describing what this other dimension is like. But this is a very good attempt. How, this, for me, this next paragraph says it all. This is NDE gold in terms of describing how impossible it actually is to relay to us exactly what this other realm was like, because it's too contrasting. It's like polar opposites in the one place. So anyway, let's go through it. So she says this vastness, this other dimension, was totally empty, but it had everything in it. So how can everything be totally empty yet contain everything? So this other realm, for me, this is what God is, what she's describing here. So they're moving through this vastness which contains everything but is totally empty. And then this being takes her to this other place within this realm or this vastness. And this being describes this place they go to this is love. This love is always here. It's always streaming towards you. It's never diminishing. It is this constant force of powerful, unconditional love that's always loving you. And the being says that it gives us all a bit of advice here, that all we have to do to tap into this love, because look, we're in this universe too, so why shouldn't we be able to experience it, even though we're in our physical forms at the moment, which from all reports in these experiences makes it a little bit more difficult to embrace than when you are in spiritual form. But doesn't mean we can't try, and I think that's what this experience is saying. If you try to be receptive to it, you are able to experience it. All you have to do is be open to it. Ask for it to come into your life. Receive it. Keep your eyes open. Are you noticing it? And if you can do that, it will heal you. And the guide's telling all this to Michaele, and as Michaele is hearing all this, she's thinking, okay, does that mean body healing? But apparently it means so much more, and it takes her a long time to truly understand what this means. And I guess for those of you who haven't experienced this other dimension, who haven't experienced this loving connection to a higher power that I personally have, it's not perfect, but at least I can sense that it's there. This is true. The more open you are to it, the more you invite it in, the more you receive it, the more you work towards it. And I guess that old Bible saying, is it a Bible or Jesus or someone said, seek and you shall find, is true. It is, in my own experience, true. And I totally agree with what Michaele and Michaele's guide have written here. So this place is truly indescribable. It defies our language. So the only word that Michaele can use that is even close to comparing what this is like is love. It's that 4-letter word that we hear again and again in these experiences. But yeah, clearly it's insufficient in actually accomplishing a satisfactory description of this place. But it's the best most people can give it. This is the word that most people use. And you can see why people say God is love. And this is why, because when people get to experience God, this is the word that most commonly pops to their mind as the most apt description. But she goes on, and this is what I love. It just encapsulates for me the confronting nature of actually describing what this is like. So she says, this place in this vastness, this loving dimension, has all the colours and more that we all know and love, but at the same time was totally empty of colour. There's no colour. It's a mysterious place. It's tangible yet intangible. It's dense yet it's thin. It is everything and it is nothing. I guess with us and the way we are in this realm, where we are in these physical bodies, where everything is, it's easy to measure stuff. It's there's not much like magic, I guess, is one way you could describe this other realm. Everything is kind of, it has a physical form. It can be measured, and everything is either up or down, fat or thin, north or south, hot or cold, tasty or disgusting. I don't know. All these things we kind of know, but then someone goes to this other realm and it has fat and thin and hot and cold all sort of mixed into one, but not there at all at the same time. You can see why it's difficult to really understand what it's like. So yeah, she goes on. She says it's like there's an actual presence there, but there's no personality. So you've got all these dichotomies there of polar opposites existing in the same realm, and seemingly it still works. She says there's shape, but there's no shape. But underlying all these mind-boggling contrast is this underlying feeling of love. It's peaceful, it's joyous, it's accepting, and for me, that's the most settling part of reading all that. Like, it's exciting to think that this is what God is. This is this place that because God doesn't seem like a thing. It's like it's not even a place. It's like it's an energy. It's like it's light. It's like this universal intelligence that is it's impossible. Well, I think it's very difficult to describe just based on these hundreds of experiences I've gone through it, and just looking at religion in general. Like, no one really has been able to efficiently and scientifically describe what God is like, let alone prove what God is, or even if it exists. So this is the best glimpse, in my opinion, we get of God. I mean, we can have a look at the religions as well to give us a bit of a teaching, but like I regularly say, the best definition or experience you're going to have and understanding you're going to have of God is through your own personal experience, not what's happened to someone else, not what someone else says it is all about. It's going to be how you experience it. It's such a unique thing, and we're all going to have slightly differing viewpoints on what that's like. But hopefully these experiences are pointers for you, and you can start seeking yourself and getting your own answers. Because I am sure, I know that God does know us all individually, and I am equally sure that God wants us to seek out that truth and to reconnect with Him. Like, it's just the natural order of the universe in a way, because if you think about it, there is only one being. God is the only one thing that's made everything in this universe. So we are all connected to that one thing. It just seems, especially in this physical realm, that we aren't, that we're all separate. But in reality, I think every living thing on this planet is made of the same thing, and more than likely has a soul, whether that's a plant or an animal, and definitely a human. But Yeah, but what is a soul then? You start to question exactly that. And I think that's as hard a question to answer as what is God, because I think they are very similar things. A soul and a God is made of similar stuff, in my opinion. So Michaele then, after getting this experience of what I would call what God is, what this dimension within the vastness that is pure love, she suddenly wakes back up in her body and finds herself head on the steering wheel, face turned away from her daughter because the daughter is horrified. And the first thing that pops into her head is, look, I should start to focus on my breathing. And she says she is told, in inverted commas, so that, I don't know if that means intuition or if this being of light still communicating with her and able to telepathically express to her, look, you should not be swallowing any more blood, and to start spitting it out. So she does that. She tries to open the door. She tries to climb into the back seat to get out of the car, and she finds that if she does that, she becomes too close to this train, which is still moving. So all this has happened very quickly. The train has not yet come to a stop. She's had this accident. The train's still moving. She's jumped into this other realm. She's had a life review. She's gone into this loving dimension, and this is all obviously within a couple of minutes, because when she comes back into her body, the train still hasn't come to a halt. Finally it does, and the conductor comes running out and says, are you okay? And this kind of seems funny to Michaele. She starts to laugh. This Michaele sounds like a bit of a character, actually, I guess. I can relate to what she's saying here. I would probably think, if I wasn't in too much pain or confused, if someone came up to me after a severe accident like that and said, are you okay? I could potentially see the funny side, because, obviously you're not going to be okay. You've just had a crash. And I guess that's why Michaele thinks it's kind of funny, that this question. So, okay, sorry, I just had a phone call, and I had one of those moments just then where you someone's about to ring, and then the phone rings. One of those telepathic type moments I was just talking about, but obviously on a much more minute scale than some of these experiences I read and the communication they experience. But maybe, just maybe, there's a little bit of telepathy going on with me and my mum. I'm sure most of you have experienced that yourself. So I was just on the phone for about an hour, so I'm totally lost as to where I was up to. So my apologies if this is not recommencing, or if it suddenly seems as though I'm talking about something different. But so I'm thinking that I'm up to this bit where she is seeing this conductor run out and ask her if she's okay, something like that anyway. And so, he does this, and then so she feels this what does she say? She feels herself, becoming conscious again, but she's starting to lose her body warmth and kind of drifting in and out of consciousness. And then she says, as this conductor guy is off to find some help, suddenly a car pulls up out of nowhere. And it's amazing how often this is the case when you read as many experiences as I do, the miraculous nature of some of these situations where people suddenly appear out of nowhere. So it sounds like this track is quite rural, it's quite regional, perhaps in the country somewhere. There's not much infrastructure around, no other cars, roads or people, but for whatever reason, she says this giant woman wearing a long coat is how she describes her. It appears out of nowhere. She reaches down to pick up her daughter and asks Michaele what she can do to help her. So she picks the daughter up and starts, gently rocking her and telling her it's going to be okay, giving her a kiss on the top of the forehead, and eventually the daughter stops crying. So yeah, Michaele just continues to express her disbelief at where this woman has come from, and I'm kind of reading between the lines here and throwing in my own 2 cents, and I'm kind of think she's suggesting that this was perhaps some sort of divine intervention. So the EMTs arrive and they say, look, I think she overhears them say, I think this woman is going to die, but she is very confident in the fact that she knows she won't. She knows she's picked this life with her daughter, and this is something she will survive. But she doesn't exactly say how she knows that, but obviously it's connected to her experience in this other dimension and what she found out from this other light being. But, as is often the case, after experiencing something as miraculous as this, you come back to Earth, and it might have a bit of a afterglow from this experience, and you might have a little bit more passion and energy to experience life as a human, but eventually that goes away. The memory of your NDE becomes a little bit more distant and blurry, but for her, and she's exactly the same. She says she thought that everything would be perfect after this experience, but she finds that life is just going back to the way it was before this accident. She doesn't say what this life was like, but I'm guessing it's just, similar for all of us. It can get a little bit dreary at times, a little bit repetitive, a little bit boring, and obviously throw in the challenges and darkness and suffering you can incur, and it's not always a pleasant place to be. So it's hard when you've been in this realm with love and light and high energy and excitement and pleasure and contentment and just comfort, free of any negativity, to come back to this realm and experience a lot of the opposite of those things. You can see why people find it difficult and get depressed, like Michaele says she does. She says unconsciously she was kind of expecting her amazing experience that she had to magically transform the actual circumstances of her life. So she feels as though it's changed her as a person, but she doesn't really go into detail there, but she says it's changed her, but the circumstances of her life are still the same, and she's kind of, I don't know, it almost seems to me she's stuck in 2 worlds. Like she's had a taste of this afterlife and been shown how pleasurable existence can be, and then she's just back in this this realm where life isn't always going to go your way. I can relate to this. I'll draw this into my own experience and give you a bit of a story of what happened to me. I mean, if you've listened to this podcast long enough, you'll pretty much know my experience and how I came to find this topic and all that sort of thing. But just briefly, I had some mystical experiences in terms of connection with a higher power, a spiritual guide, some sort of light being, or maybe all of the above, angels, whatever you want to call them, and just these, handful of experiences when it all started were just so incredibly intense and magical and miraculous that I thought, oh wow, this is incredible. Like, this is going to continue to happen to me for the rest of my life. But unfortunately, those more intensely remarkable experiences dried up, and they do occur sporadically but very rarely. And it's just when I look back at it now, I kind of think, well, I guess those things happened to push me in a different path and change the kind of life I was living, and I've done all that, and I am definitely a different person now to what I was. So often I think these spiritually transformative experiences, they're a double-edged sword, because they give you this, they teach you that there is this other dimension out there that is a lot more powerful, loving, welcoming, and a place you'd like to be in at the same time. Although I never had a near-death experience, mine were happening while I was conscious. A couple of examples, just strangers would walk into the warehouse I was working in, and I'd just feel this intense love, like just totally drawn to these random, and there was nothing physical attraction. Like, some of these were older men, and I'm not gay, so it was different from physical appeal. It was just like we were connecting on a soul level, and I would just sit there in awe. I would open a page on, look at a picture of a tree on a web page, and I'd just be, like awe. Music, same, just awe, just little things. Like, I'd be reading a page and suddenly my eyes would focus on the word love, and all these things. Like, they don't seem much, but for me they were intensely powerful, profound experiences. And a couple more were just communications, connections, telepathic discussions I had with light beings, angels, whatever, beings that have my best interest at heart. And for me, this was all sort of happened within 12-month period, and then it kind of fizzled out to these more sporadic situations that occur to me now, like I was describing earlier, the connection with the light, the feeling of being in the presence of something more powerful than myself on a regular basis. But at the same time, I get these voices that are more demonic in nature, and they are a constant reminder that this physical realm is not quite as it seems. So people call that mental illness. Well, scientists, Westerners might call that mental illness when you hear voices like that. But for me, it's I know that it's beyond my mind's capability to produce something like that, and it is some other realm or dimension or whatever. It has chosen to have a discussion with me, and unfortunately it's more of the negative stuff. But like I said, I know there's something much more powerful and loving and beautiful out there, and it is there. It has got my back, and all of our backs, and it's just a temporary experience we're having in this realm that is teaching us lots of lessons and giving us the experience we so desired, whatever is happening in your life, whether you're enjoying it or not. It's a high probability that it is the experience your soul has chosen to experience, and it's not always going to be loving, joying, happy moments. There is going to be some suffering, and it sucks, and I hate it too when those darker moments come. When I read these experiences to you, it just naturally elevates me and puts me in a more enlightened, positive state of mind. So reading about God and spirituality just does that. But obviously it's not always like that for me, and I have these moments where I just don't want to be here, and that's a common trait, I would say, for humans. And if I would go so far as to say that most people would feel that way at least at some point in their lives. Not obviously on a regular basis like I do. I think I have a bit of depression, but most people would, not like life, at least, at the very least. At certain points, it might only be a brief dissatisfaction with their current experience. But yeah, if everyone's honest, I think, there's times in life where it sucks and it's hard. And yeah, you wonder why you're here. So yeah, Michaele has said that she's had a taste of this afterlife and thought that somehow this would miraculously make her life easier. And I guess on one level it has, because she knows that life goes on, and when it does, it's in a realm that is a lot seemingly easier to manage and navigate than the human life. But unfortunately, when she's come back and seen, back to a human physical form, it's become a little bit mundane and challenging again for her, and this experience she had hasn't removed that entirely. But she says, in this last sentence, she says, 36 years later, this experience she feels had the desired effect in terms of it helping her navigate the world she lives in here and now. And she says that she's able to connect to this love, and it flows, and all we have to do is ask for it and be willing to receive it. And her final sentence is, the intensity of this experience has never dimmed. It's like it happened yesterday, I guess, is another way of wording that. And this one happened in December 1978. So another one of these experiences that happened a long time ago, way before near deaths were commonly discussed. So yeah, I like that one. I personally thought that was it was a good one for me to read and commentate on. So hopefully you thought the same. Thank you for listening again and joining me for another week of these wonderful reminders of what we are and where we came from and where we go. And hopefully it gives you a little bit of joy or chills you out or puts you to sleep, whatever it does. Thank you for listening, and I will talk to you again next week. Goodbye.